Hi, in this video, let's create this simple image hover effect. Let's first have a look at the HTML. Here we have a div with the class of container, and inside this div we have an image which has a width of 300 pixels and height of 250 pixels. Below the image we have a div with the class of overlay, and this div is going to form an overlay which is going to appear when we hover over the image. And at the bottom we have some text content which includes an h2 tag, a paragraph tag, and at the bottom we have a button. And that's all we need for the HTML. Now let's go to our CSS file and start styling each of these elements. First, let's give a few styles to the body. We'll give the body a background color of 221A33. We'll set its height to 100 VH. And we'll choose the font family of Helvetica. Now let's set the height and the width of the container. We'll give it a height of 250 pixels and a width of 300 pixels, which is equal to the width and the height of the image. Further, let's vertically and horizontally center the image and the container. So I'll give the body a few flexbox properties. So I'll say display flex, justify content, center, align items, center. Now we have the container exactly in the center. Now let's start styling our container once again. We'll add a few more styles. We'll give it a border, a thick border of 10 pixels solid white. Next, we'll center the text and we'll change the color of the text to white. Now let's add some hover effects to the image. We'll select the class of container. We'll say hover space image, and we'll slightly increase the size of the image. So we'll say transform scale by 1.1. Let's have a look in the browser, and here you can see as soon as I hover over the container, the image scales up slightly. Now let's add in some transitions to the image. We'll say transition all 0.2 seconds linear. Now let's have a look, and we have some smooth transition. The next thing we need to do is we need to style the overlay. So let's do that. We'll select the class of overlay and we'll give it a height of 250 pixels and a width of 300 pixels. We'll give it a position of absolute, and this needs to be positioned in relation to the container. So let's give the container a position of relative. Next, let's position the overlay at a distance of 0 from the top. For now, let's give the overlay a random background color so that we can see it. So I'll give it a background color of red. Now let's add a hover effect to the overlay. So we'll select the class of container :hover. We'll select the class of overlay and we'll give it a background color of RGBA 26114, and the alpha channel is going to be 0.9. So as soon as I hover over the container, the overlay is going to have this color, which is a shade of blue. So let's have a look in the browser, and here you can see it. We don't need this red background anymore, so we'll remove this red background and we'll add some transition. we'll say all 0.2 second, and the timing function is going to be linear. Now let's have a look, and here you can see. Next, let's start styling the text content. So first we'll be styling the h2 element. So I'll say container space h2. Now we want this h2 to enter the container from the top. So let's first place it above the container. So I'll say transform translate on the y-axis by -370 pixel. Next, let's style the paragraph element. So I'll say container space p. We'll set the font style to italic. We'll give it a width of 90% and we'll set the margin to auto. Now let's style the button. So I'll say container space button. We'll give it a border of none in order to remove the default border. We'll give it a background color of black. We'll set the text color to white. We'll give it a padding of 0.5 em. We'll give it a margin to the top of 1 em. And we'll set its cursor to pointer. Now in hover state, we want the h2 element to move somewhere in the center of the container just above the image. So let's do that. So I'll say container :hover space h2 and I'll say transform translate on the y-axis by -220 pixel. Now let's have a look, and you can see that as soon as I hover the container, the h2 moves inside the container. Let's do the same for the paragraph and the button. So we'll select the container class :hover space p, and we'll also select the button. So I'll say container :hover space button, and we'll use the transform property and we'll say translate on the y-axis by -230 pixel. Now let's have a look, and here you can see that the paragraph and the button moves inside the container on hover. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to add in some transition. So first let's add in some transition to the paragraph, or we can simply add the transition to all three of them together. So let's do that. I'll say container space h2 container space paragraph and container space button, and we'll set the transition to all 0.2 second linear. Now let's have a look, and here you can see that the transition has been added to the h2 element, the paragraph and the button. Finally, if you look closely, you can see that the image is moving slightly outside the container. So let's hide the overflow for the container. So here I'll say overflow hidden, and here we have the final hover effect. It was quite simple. Hope you liked the video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have a nice day.